What is up, y'all? My name is Rob Donaldson, and welcome back to another edition of Rob's Best Bets. And in this episode, we are once again talking about college football, baby, here in Week 9. And obviously, last week, it was our worst week in terms of win-loss record on bets, also in terms of units lost on bets. Definitely not where we wanted to sit. But hey, here in Week 9, we have two bets that have gone final. We're waiting on Missouri State and that money line to kind of see where that puts us. But we started off this week 2-0, and we obviously are still doing really well on the season. And heck, even last week, during a losing effort, we hit a 5-unit bet on Arkansas money line, or our Arkansas plus 7.5 rather. And we also hit a UAB first half money line, over 5-1 odds. And we also cashed their plus 21.5, and that was obviously one of I think that was the biggest upset on the week, if I'm not mistaken. That was a really good angle. They led start to finish, and those two kind of silver linings make you feel all warm and fuzzy, even when you do end up losing a bit of money. And although I really don't want to be chasing those warm and fuzzy feelings and those silver linings here in Week 9, I really don't think we're going to have to, because there's a lot of really great angles that I'm very excited to present to you guys here in this video. But first, before we hop into the picks, I do want to take a second to shout out today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. And if you haven't already signed up using promo code ROBDFB, I highly recommend you guys do so. And on top of that, if you haven't checked out my DFS show with Colby Dant over at the College Experience YouTube channel as well, we put out a lot of underdog player entries that we like for college football throughout the week. And so you guys are more than welcome to tune in there and kind of participate with us or alongside us with those bets as well. But with all that being said, y'all, let's go ahead and jump into these Week 9 bets here in the college football world. For pick number 1, we are heading out to a Sun Belt matchup here on Thursday between South Alabama and Georgia State. And Georgia State is one of those teams that cashed our biggest bet of the entire season based on a payout standpoint, because we had their first half money line against James Madison and had their full game spread of 21.5. Both of those hit for us in a big time fashion. And when you are looking at this matchup here, really ever since we placed that bet on Georgia State, their offense just has not been it. Even in that game where they did catch that first half money line, their offense was pretty inept as well. And when you look at the other side with South Alabama, obviously losing a guy like a Gio Lopez at quarterback in the transfer portal from last season is going to be a big blow, and a program like this might not be able to kind of, come to within just one off season. And from that standpoint, I think we have two struggling offenses and two defenses that have kind of been up against it and kind of performing well as well in this game. And for those reasons, I say we go ahead and take the under of 55.5 points here for 2 units for our first bet here in Week 9. For pick number 2, we are heading out to the Friday slate, where we have, once again, only one bet on the Friday slate, and this is going to be in a game between Cal and Virginia Tech. And it's very weird to call this an ACC matchup, but I guess that's what it is. At the same time, as we know, going from the entirety of the West Coast, from Berkeley, California, out to Blacksburg, Virginia, my goodness, y'all, that is a trek. And although Virginia Tech has been an up-and-down team this season, obviously they've already overseen a head coaching switch as well. I do think this defense is going to be capable of kind of stepping up here, playing well against a team, making that long travel. And Virginia Tech's offense has actually been pretty capable under the interim coach Montgomery here as well. And I get it. It's kind of weird laying that 4.5 number with a team with only 2 wins going up against a team with only 5 wins, or with 5 wins rather. But I think that's actually why you ultimately lay it, because of the perspective of those win-loss records. So let's go ahead and lay the 4.5 points here for 2 units for our second bet here in week 9. For pick number 3, we are heading out to Saturday, and when we're looking at this matchup here, this has been one of our favorite programs to bet on, which is very odd because this game is between Ohio and Eastern Michigan, and as you guys probably already know, we're going to be going with Eastern Michigan, and for a lot of the same reasons that we have been taking them against the spread. I mean, we've placed 4 bets on them, or rather 5 bets on them, and we've cashed 4 of those 5 bets, and we've been raking, and those have been high unit plays, and the reason why is because a 2-6 Eastern Michigan, or, you know, going back to even the previous time, the 1-6 Eastern Michigan, or the 1-5 Eastern Michigan, those are really deceptive looking records because Eastern Michigan is actually a capable team with a very good head coach, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they ended up winning this game in Ypsilanti against a good Ohio team that could be threatening to win a MAC title this season. And in this spot, they are getting 12.5 points here. And for that reason, once again, let's go ahead and take the Eagles, getting the 12.5 points here for 3 units for our third bet here in week 9. For pick number 4, we are heading out to Fayetteville, Arkansas, where we have the Razorbacks. And shout out to the Razorbacks. There was a couple obviously big bets that we cashed this weekend that we already talked about, or this past weekend rather, that we've already talked about. Arkansas was our big 5-unit wager. We've only made really, I believe, 3 or 4 of those on the season. We've cashed every single one of those, and Arkansas last weekend helped us kind of advance that record forward. And when you are looking at this matchup here against Auburn, Auburn's offense, man, just looks like a complete disaster. And although the talent is there on the defensive side of the ball, they still have a lot of weak points. And Arkansas, what they showed against Texas A&M last week is, yes, against good defenses in the SEC with Bobby Petrino at the helm, this offense can hum and make explosive plays. And once again, I think we have a really good value proposition on Arkansas at home in Fayetteville, going up against a team that I think they can win outright against. And so for that reason, I say we go ahead and take Arkansas on the outright money line for 3 units for our fourth bet here in week 9. For pick number 5, we are heading out to the ACC, where we have a matchup here between NC State and Pitt. And although Pitt has kind of seen a weird quarterback turn this season where they started off with Holstein, then they played a true freshman, and they've experienced kind of varying results with both guys, ultimately this offense for Pitt does feel all right. Now, the defensive side of the ball for Pitt feels like an absolute disaster. And similarly, you have the Wolfpack on the other side with Dave Doran and CJ Bailey and company, where their offense has been pretty darn good this season. Their defense has been absolutely atrocious. And for that reason, we are seeing a spread in this game set at 6.5, kind of hovering right around that touchdown. And although I think that's a justifiable line, given the fact that this game is going to be scored in those touchdown increments, I do believe that's enough of a cushion to take a shot here with the Wolfpack, because I think the Wolfpack can win this game honestly outright. And for that reason, once again, let's go ahead and take NC State, getting the 6.5 points here for 2 units for our fifth bet here in week 9. For pick number 6, we are heading back to the SEC, where we have a matchup here that honestly is massive. And this game is between Missouri and Vanderbilt. And the very interesting thing about this game is this could end up determining which one of these teams is going to end up making the college football playoff when it's all said and done. And it's kind of crazy to think that Missouri and Vanderbilt, 2 programs that haven't really been in this mix for, you know, a long stretch of history, are in this type of game. Now, I say that because over the last 2 years, they've been fantastic. I think they're moving up in terms of being, you know, an established program. Vanderbilt, we will see what happens post Diego Pavia, but guess what? They have Diego Pavia right now. I think they're actually the better team in terms of just a neutral site type of atmosphere. And although Missouri did kind of show some heart last week against Auburn, they struggled for a lot of that game. And I do think that Vanderbilt has a chance to kind of win this game in a style of 30-20, the way that they almost kind of won last week against LSU. So let's go ahead and lay the 2.5 points here with the Commodores for 2 units for our 6th bet here in week 9. For pick number 7, we are heading out to the Big 12, where we have a game here between BYU and Iowa State. And BYU is coming off of a massive win against Utah in the Holy War. It's one of those rivalries that I don't think a lot of people on the national side of things really pay attention to as much as I think they should, because it's one of the best rivalries in all of college sports. And when a team like a BYU, who's already undefeated, is coming off that emotional high of beating Utah, a lot of people are going to be wanting to back them because, hey, they're undefeated. They just beat a good Utah team. That's what a lot of people see. But at the same time, Iowa State is still kind of lingering in the mix of this Big 12 race. And guess what? If they lose this game, you can basically knock them out of that Big 12 race, because I think it's going to be kind of a 2 or maybe even a 3-horse race between 3 teams or 2 teams that I think are a lot better than Iowa State should they not win this game. Now, I do think Iowa State's going to win this game, and there's a reason why, in my opinion, an unranked Iowa State Cyclones team is laying a 2.5 figure against that undefeated BYU squad. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and take the Clones here, laying the 2.5 points for 4 units for our 7th bet here in week 9. For pick number 8, we are heading back to the Big 12, where we have a matchup here between Baylor and Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is one of those other teams that's kind of in the mix right now for that Big 12 title. And although they are in the mix, I do think they are a bit of a fraud. And they are taking on Baylor in this game, where, again, Baylor, I haven't really been sold on them even since they were catching hype in the offseason, because Dave Aranda, for whatever reason, a defensive guru, mind you, his team doesn't play defense. I don't get it. Nobody gets it. And guess what? Baylor's kind of in that middle territory again, because the defensive guru's offense is sort of carrying this team right now. Now, at the same time I say that, I think Baylor's offense is legit. And I have a lot of question marks about Cincinnati's offense. Now, do I think they're going to put up points? Yeah, probably, inherently. But at the same time, I think this is probably going to be something like a 27-31 or a 24-27 type of game. And when you're looking at the spread here and you're seeing Baylor catching 4.5 points, that's going to put them within a lot of margins that I really want to be a part of. So let's go ahead and take the Bears here, catching the 4.5 points on the road for 2 units for our 7th bet here in week 9. All right, next up, we are heading back to the SEC, where we have a matchup here between the Texas Longhorns and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And my goodness, I don't know what it is. Well, actually, I do know what it is. Texas is a big brand with Arch Manning, a big name at QB, and Steve Sarkisian, a big name at the head coaching spot. But guess what? Texas is a very bad team, and notably, a very bad offense. They honestly should have lost the game last week in Lexington, Kentucky, and now they're traveling to Starkville, Mississippi on this little kind of pseudo road trip that they got going on here. And Mississippi State is coming off a game against Florida in the Swamp, where I really thought they had a chance to win. The last time that they were in Starkville, they went to overtime against Tennessee, and honestly, I think they should have beat them as well. And again, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people look at the win-loss records, look at the fact that Texas has kind of rattled off 2 in a row, against Oklahoma, against Kentucky, and they're wanting to buy back in to that big brand, that big name at QB, that head coach with a big name, And once again, I think Texas is going to prove that they're going to fall flat on their face, and Mississippi State's going to win this game. I'm pretty convinced of that. Now, I do think when you are looking at the spread, it worries me a little bit that it's that high. Maybe it is just the brand pushing it up that high, but we're going to take a strong yet tentative stab for that reason on that number. So let's go ahead and take the 7 points here with the Bulldogs for 3 units here in Week 9. All right, next up, we are heading back to the SEC, where we have a game here between A&M and LSU. Baton Rouge at night. This is going to be a really fun atmosphere for a lot of reasons, because one, this atmosphere could turn 100% against Brian Kelly if LSU does not come out of the gates and take an early lead, because his seat is definitely getting hot. And on the other side of things, we could just get a really great game between two teams that are still very much in the mix, obviously, for the SEC, for a college football playoff, and for A&M, they're undefeated. They are absolutely rolling right now under head coach Mike Elko, and I do think that A&M is legit, but going back-to-back on the road in Fayetteville and then Baton Rouge and kind of handling business in both would surprise me, given the fact that their OC, Colin Klein, I just don't buy into him as being a big-time ball coach. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and take the 3 points here with the Tigers for 3 units here in Week 9. All right, next up, we are heading out to the Big Ten for the first time in this video, and we're going to be taking a look at an in-state rivalry matchup here between the Michigan Wolverines and the Michigan State Spartans. And because of the fact that Michigan State has been blown out in back-to-back weeks against UCLA, which was kind of the oddball, and Indiana, all of a sudden, I think we're actually getting an inflated line against Michigan State. Now, maybe it's inflated for good reason. I don't really think this Michigan State team is all that good, but I also kind of have a lot of questions about Michigan's offense, especially going on the road in a very hostile environment, because guess what? This game is still going to fill out. It doesn't matter if Michigan State was 0-7 or 0-8 or 0-6 or whatever. Against Michigan, their fan base will show up. The weather's getting colder. Michigan's going to be running the ball a lot. This clock is going to be moving, and I think there's a good reason why this line is sitting at 14 and the hook. And the hook is kind of important here because this could certainly fall on a 28-14 style of ball game or even a 21-7 style of ball game. And for that reason, I really do like a side here taking Michigan State, catching that 14.5 line for 3 units for our second to last bet here in Week 9. All right, for our final bet here in Week 9, we are heading out to Salt Lake City, Utah, where we have a matchup here between Colorado and the Utah Utes. And what a brutal defeat last week for a lot of reasons for Utah. That might be the death blow when it all comes down to it in terms of them making a college football playoff or a Big 12 title. And when you are looking at Colorado, obviously they are coming off of a massive kind of upset win over Iowa State. And so you kind of have two different angles sparring against each other. One, you have Utah in that, prototypical bounce back spot at home, and you have Colorado in that prototypical hangover spot of you're coming off a big win. How do you perform the very next game out? And I do think when you have those kind of sparring angles and it's pointing to one side with the Utah Utes and a really good head coach in Kyle Whittingham, I'm going to be very prone to want to lay that line. And in this matchup, it's really no different. So let's go ahead and lay the 13.5 points here with the Utes for 3 units for our final bet here in Week 9. All that being said, I really want to thank you guys for checking out today's video. And if you do want to show some love, make sure you drop a like in this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you guys comment down below. But with all that being said, y'all, I will see you in a future video. Take it easy.